There is metaphorically, and especially biblically, a deep connection between light and being able to see with truth, and thus inversely, blindness with deception or lies, or not being able to see the truth. And truth is an interesting thing in the world today. We live in a world where the message of our culture, of our society, is that truth is, well, whatever I want it to be. I can forge it to be, that I conform it to whatever I think I am, my own truth. That I can bend reality to that. I feel this way, and therefore this is the way I'm going to forge my reality. There was a Supreme Court case a number of years ago, Casey versus Planned Parenthood, that defined liberty. Says, at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, of the mystery of human life. Well, that's a lot for me to define myself. I only share that because it sort of depicts this idea that I have a right, that I get to define my concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, of the mystery of human life. That's a lot for me to define. But it does sort of speak to the heart of where I think how many people conceive of reality. That it's something for me to define for myself, my own truth. But rather, part of the idea of our Christian faith is that there is in fact objective truth. That rather truth isn't something just what I want it to be and conform to myself, but rather the opposite. That truth is something for me to discover, to seek, to understand, and in that shapes and forms and transforms me. That I conform myself to that truth, not the other way around. But that sometimes so we begin to see this tension between my own self and my defining of reality versus the truth that's out there that shapes and forms and defines me. A theologian once described this as the ego drama versus the theodrama. Ego being the word for self and theo being the word for God. Ego drama versus the theodrama. What's this? This ego drama is exactly this idea that I am the writer of my own story. I'm the writer, the director, and the star of my own story. As opposed to the theodrama. That God is the writer of the story. God's the writer, the director, and the star. But the beautiful thing is I'm caught up in this great story bigger than myself. That's the tension. So we're in this, often fall into this ego drama. That I define my own reality, and ultimately, and part of what Christ is driving at today in this gospel of the blind man, is that ego drama is the true blindness. There's the whole irony in our gospel today, that it's the blind man who's the one who truly sees. And it's the Pharisees who can see, who are the ones who are truly blind. And where does that blindness come from? It's in this ego drama when I get caught up in myself. That I can't see beyond myself, or I can't see reality other than how it serves me and how it gets me what I want. We even have a word for this. That word is pride. Now, when I was younger and used to hear pride, or someone being a prideful person, I used to only think of someone who's very overtly arrogant or very overtly selfish. But as I've grown older and learned to see that pride is sort of a slithery thing, it can slither under the surface, even in myself. But this idea that I'm defining my own story, or how do I bend things towards what I want? That prideful people can still have a veneer. People can still be very polite. and very courteous, and yet still be living in the ego drama. There's this idea of be true to yourself. And there is something good about that, of being authentic. Sometimes there's this idea of be true to myself. Well, what if myself is an egotistical, ambitious person who wants to manipulate others to get what I want, and I don't care what it does to you? Well, I should be true to myself. Or maybe myself has to change. My truth maybe needs to be taken up into a bigger truth and be transformed. And that's what God is doing, drawing us into a bigger story. Another image of this is this pride, which, by the way, this is at the heart of sin. The original sin of Adam and Eve. What was the sin of? They ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I get to define reality for myself without God. I am the writer of my story. That's the original sin, and the slithery serpent of pride. One way it's described is this image of people being on a bus, on this bus trip, and this bus is driving through the most beautiful, incredible, scenic countryside you've ever seen, mountains and trees and beautiful skies, and yet on the bus, all the shades are closed, and everyone on the bus is arguing who gets to sit in the front seat on the bus. That's kind of what this ego drama does. And what's the answer? Not to fight my way to the front of the bus, but open the shades of the windows and look out and see the beauty around us, to be drawn out into this story that's greater than ourselves, this beauty that draws us out of ourselves. That's what God is up to. Drawing us out of our own ego drama into the great theodrama, the great story of God. And that may seem terrifying at first, because if I'm drawn out of myself, and I'm not the center, then what? Does that mean I have no significance or importance? No. In fact, it's more because you're part of this greater story. It's that whole ironic twist that Jesus talks about. When we finally stop looking at ourselves, when we finally lose ourselves into something greater, when I finally lose my life into a greater story, that's when I finally start to figure out life. That I finally start to live, that I finally start to actually be truest, to live into the truest version of who I'm meant to be. But that as long as I fixate on myself, I never quite get it or get there. So that this is what God is up to. And that what God reveals then, this faith then, what that means isn't just my truth or what happens to be most convenient for me or work best for me of the various options of what I could be, but rather it's that God has revealed who he is. It's a truth outside of us that we go out and discover. We've applied reason and searched, asked those questions of God, but also that God has revealed who he is. This isn't just the version of the gospel according to Father Kevin, or this isn't just the version that I happen to like, but it's that God has revealed to us who he is. There's a line that I love in St. Thomas Aquinas' poetic hymn titled "Godhead Here in Hiding," where he's wrestling about the mystery of the Eucharist and how the bread and wine, it looks like bread and wine, but it's God. How do I know? Well, because God has told me. He writes, God himself has told me, so take for truth I do. For truth himself speaks truly, or there's nothing true. God isn't just an interesting concept that we can speculate about. But God is a person. And a person that is written in the hearts of humanity that we've been searching for, truth, goodness, beauty. And as we've been searching, but then, when we didn't quite get it all right, He helps us along by showing us who he is. This isn't just what I happen to think who God is. This is who God reveals himself, tells us who he is. And in doing so, draws us out to the greater story. This is what we're part of, being drawn out of ourselves, the blindness of our ego drama, to be cured of that blindness, to see the great beauty around us, the great story that we're to be swept up into, moving from the drama to ourselves to the great story of God. This is the truth and the light that Christ wants to open our eyes to.